Viewer discretion is advised. It was Halloween time in 2004, and Lionsgate Films opened strong with their newest horror film, Saw, which had a major weekend that compelled the studio to greenlight a sequel, Saw 2, immediately. But at this point, the creators of Saw, James Wan and Leigh Whannell, had moved on to work on another project. So Twisted Pictures began shopping around for scripts when they came across one by new upcoming director, Daryl Lynn Bousman, who was told the script he had wrote was too similar to Saw. Eventually, the Saw producers brought in Darren, and together they reworked the script to become what is known as Saw 2, aka the most green-colored film you've ever seen since the last nature doc you watched on Netflix. No, seriously, it's like stupid amounts of green hue. Saw 2 is the story of a father and son that Jigsaw has torn apart because of how terrible they are as people, more dad, less son, and that they need to be taught a lesson. Dad, Detective Eric Matthews, is investigating one of Jigsaw's latest crime scenes when it's revealed that Jigsaw wants Eric's attention. That leads Eric and Riggs' SWAT team. Riggs is a character in the Saw universe who will become more important in later films, to locate an abandoned building where the inside has been booby-trapped. After some gross yet fun tension building, Eric gets his man, Jigsaw. John Kramer is the Jigsaw killer, and here he is all sad and cancer-riddled with a new game to play. There is another location, a house that has several ruffians waking up to find themselves in Jigsaw's game. One of their characters is Daniel Matthews, son of Detective Eric, and Amanda, who is from the first movie, who's not too happy she's stuck in another game. The rest of the people are not worth talking about because they are just cannon fodder for the duration of the film. The goal of the first game is for Detective Eric Matthews to sit still long enough with John to have a conversation about his sins of being a bad cop. After the timer runs out, Daniel will be delivered safely to his father. Eric struggles to find patience. The second goal for the people trapped in the house is to have a set amount of time before the toxins that Jigsaw released in the air ducts takes hold of their respiratory systems and they die. Some of these people try to work as a team while others move along with selfish and malicious intent. I'll stop you right there. When people talk about Saw 2 as a film, they never identify what the story is, just the traps, because in this film they're not just stuck in a bathroom like before. They have a whole house to explore, which means more traps. Ah, yes. The real joyous highlights of the Saw franchise. In the first film, the traps weren't meant to be part of the torture porn aspect of the film, which they really ham it up for the rest of the franchise. We begin the film with an unknown man who awakes to find himself in a room with an Iron Maiden mask on, and is told by Billy on the screen that the key to unlock the death mask is underneath his eye. The dude screams and squeals, never really getting far before the timer runs up and his fate is sealed forever. There is a staircase in the abandoned warehouse that leads to John, the Jigsaw killer. This staircase will move flights to drop or crush anyone who attempts to climb them, and to make matters worse, they are caged in with an electric fence, effectively taking out a few pigs along the way. From here, we'll just hang out in the House of Horrors as the group of junkies stumble into one casualty after another. We have the loaded revolver behind the peephole of the door. That sets the rules straight with these losers. It's a very barbaric trap if you want to call it that at all, and like the weirdo I am, I always giggle a little when it happens. There's an inescapable furnace in the basement intended for Obi to die, another important Saw lore character, where this guy has to crawl in first to start it. This trap plays hard into those afraid of being burned alive. The Pit of Needles has to be the most famous of all traps and the easiest one to complete, as long as you don't have a phobia to needles. This one gets a lot of people, but it doesn't bother me much, and honestly, there's no actual threat here other than a bunch of tiny piercings you'll receive. The next trap is a special one known as the Razor Blade Box, in which a character sticks her arms in underneath the device in an attempt to get the antidote from within, but is stuck trying to pull back her arms as the razor blades cut into her wrist. Now, when I watch these films, I think about the hypothetical of what if it was me in this trap. With this trap, I believe I've solved it, but it's all about the approach of it. She sticks in both arms at the same time. No, use one arm so your free hand can push the blades open as you pull back the other without cutting yourself. Any traps here that you think you would survive better than these losers? Tell me in the comments below. And of course, the bathroom from the first film is discovered at the end and plays as the finish line for the movie. Saw 2 is a 2 out of 5 stars, and honestly I think this is the second worst Saw in the franchise as of writing this. Saw 2 is honestly not as well placed together as its predecessor, with notable absence of big name actors. Just because Donnie is Marky Mark's brother doesn't make him a star, and the worst part is the storytelling. With the first Saw, we got to spend a lot of time with Dr. Gordon as he tried to piece together his shitty life to solve why he was placed in the Saw game and ultimately his survival. With Saw 2, Detective Matthews never gets a close examination, and when they try, it repeats some earlier scenes and overlays audio clips. The cinematography is the same as the first film because it's the same crew. Same crew from the first, with the exception of James Wan and Leigh Whannell, but that does not equate to the same great product as a result. Now, the most interesting thing this film does for the Saw franchise is open it up. The first one told a very self-containing story, while this one is aimed to bring in a larger crowd of people, which will create a web of connections across the Saw universe. Some of the characters we see in this film will appear in future films, helping piece together what the Saw world is shaped like. No, it's not shaped like a Jiggy. Just because I'm not a big fan of this one, I'll occasionally come back and give it another go.